Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to yet another episode in Inner Guide Q&A program. So today we are going to discuss how to deal with toxic people. So toxic people can be found everywhere in this society, right? Sometimes toxic people can be found in our family, right? Maybe they can be found in our neighborhood. Maybe we can find them as our friends. So in one way or another, we have to deal with these people. And also, we have that intention that we should not get hurt ourselves, and also we should not hurt others, right? So we need to find a way to deal with these people. So today we are going to discuss about that. So first of all, I will tell you a wonderful story that tells us how Buddha dealt with a toxic person, right? So this is a famous and well-known story. One day, a man came to the Buddha and he started yelling and insulting, and he was cursing Buddha, right? So, do you know how Buddha faced that situation? He was smiling. He didn't make any reaction. Throughout that conversation and throughout that situation, he put on a smile, a positive smile on his face, and he was looking at that person who was yelling at him very kindly, right? So he was very kind to that person. Now after some time, that person stopped yelling, right? Everything that he packed inside him was over. He was finished. Then our great teacher Supreme Buddha asked a wonderful question from him, right? Now it is totally different to the situation, right? It does not suit for the situation. Supreme Buddha asked, do you get visitors to your home? Does visitors visit to your home? Then that person was astonished and he was amazed. And he said, yes, I get so many visitors to my home. Then Supreme Buddha kindly asked from that person, do you treat them with foods and drinks? Then that person said, yes, I am treating them. Then Supreme Buddha said, what if they did not accept what you have treated, what you have given? So, for whom those foods and drinks belongs to, if they did not accept those foods and drinks? Then that person laughed in front of the Buddha and he said, so if they did not accept my treat, then it belongs to me. I will eat them. Then our Supreme Buddha, with a great and wonderful kind smile in his face, he said, same goes with this situation, man. You treated me with rude and harsh words. You treated me with anger. But I am a person who is not accepting anything that you have given to me. I will never accept those rude and harsh words that you treated me. Right? So if I do not accept anything that you have given, then everything that you gave to me belongs to you. Then you should eat it. Right? Then that person was amazed and his anger was cooled down. Then after, Supreme Buddha preached the Dhamma, his teachings to him. After that, he became a follower of our great teacher Supreme Buddha. Now see how positively and how successfully our great teacher Supreme Buddha dealt with that toxic person. Now, if we were in that situation, what would be our reaction? Normally, when people are yelling at us, we try to talk to them back. We try to prove them wrong, right? We try to control them with our rude and harsh words. Supreme Buddha said, if you treat with anger to the people who is treating you with anger, if you give the same thing, that means you are sharing their food and eating. Right? If you become angry, that means you are sharing their treats. Remember, whenever you are in such situations, whenever you face toxic people, whenever people around you are angry, what you have to do? The first thing that you have to do is put on a positive smile to your face. Never show your sad or angry face to them. If you show that, that means you are providing what they want. Because they are coming to you expecting to hurt you. If you show them that you have been hurt, then you are unsuccessful. You provide them what they wanted. So never show your angry or sad face to them. Put on a smile. Be a positive person. Be a bigger person than him. Because when one person becomes angry, right, he becomes mentally weak. Remember, mentally weak people express their anger easily. The reason why they are expressing their anger is because they don't have a strong mentality. So you need to be the bigger guy, right? To be the bigger guy, you have to be positive, you have to smile, and you have to be motivated with virtues and morals. Okay? Be the best version of yourself. Don't try to talk to them back. That is the first thing. And also, you have to listen to what they tell, what they speak. Right? Set apart and leave behind the person. Don't care about the person. Care about what they say. Right? Sometimes they may be yelling at you because of a mistake that they think that you have done, but in reality, sometimes you haven't done it. So what you have to do? You have to listen to that and understand what they say. Right? Give a big attention to what they say. Right? So if they complain you about a mistake or something else, then you have to think, is that mistake prevails in my life? Right? Is that mistake is inside my life? Have I done that mistake really? Right? If you have done some mistake and if that is the reason that they are yelling at you, then you have to correct your mistake. But never show the face of anger or sadness. Okay? Then you have to correct it. If you haven't done any mistake, and still if they are complaining you, then don't try to prove them wrong. Because each and every time you try to prove them wrong, they may be understanding it in a wrong way. Because when our mind gets deluded or when our mind is covered by anger, normally an angry man shuts his eyes and ears and he opens his mouth. Right? He cannot see anything, he cannot listen to anything, he cannot hear anything. So what you have to do? Don't try to prove them wrong. Stay silent. Silence can give many answers to problems. Right? So if you need to prove them wrong with your success. Not with your words. Right? That is how we do it. So you have to set apart the person and listen to what they say. If you have done a mistake, correct it. If you haven't done a mistake, leave it behind. Don't care about that. So the best practice that you can do to generate and to have this skill is to practice the mind of loving kindness. Right? If you love yourself, you will never like to make yourself angry. If you love yourself, then you will have the opportunity to love others. And if you love others, you will never try to hurt those people with rude and angry words. So practice loving kindness, practice compassion, right? Love, compassion, care, these things can provide many answers to the problems that pop up in our life. So you always need to be kind. You always need to be humble. And also remember, being humble is not being weak. You need to be positive, right? You need to have a good skill to handle these situations. Now this can be done by visualizing to yourself that how I'm going to face such a situation. If you can visualize that a situation like that now, and if you can imagine in your mind how I'm going to face it, right? If you can see that you are having a good smile on your face, and you are listening to those people, and you are handling that situation very successfully, then that visualization will help you to deal in a real situation like that. So practice that, right? That is how we deal with toxic people. Never provide what they want. When they come to you, they need the anger from you. They need to hurt you. So don't provide that. If you did not provide it, you will handle it successfully. So I wish you all, may all of you have that wonderful skill to deal with the toxic people successfully. Namo Buddhaya. When we are living our life, sometimes we become rejected by people. Rejection is a common experience that we all have faced in all of our lives. But sometimes people, when they face rejection, when they have been criticized, when they do not fit into the places in their life, they become so stressed and depressed and frustrated. Remember, rejection is one of the best motivations in this world. Okay? It depends on how you use it. You can use the rejection to build up yourself, as well as you can use the rejection to make yourself even more worse. So it depends on how you use it. Successful people used the rejection to build up themselves. Successful people become more and more motivated when they are being rejected. Now, when we face these types of experiences, maybe rejection, maybe criticism, maybe bullying, maybe anxiety, depression, work stress, whatever the experience is, whatever the hard experience is, when we face these problems, we think this stimulation, this experience is going to last forever. But in reality, it is not. Right? So, rejection is a common experience. Even Supreme Buddha was rejected by the people. Now, before he became the Buddha, there was a time he was struggling and he was practicing the self-mortification so hard. He was giving so many sufferings to this body to try to find the way of liberation from sufferings. So at that time there was rituals like that. Even for today, the people practice this self-mortification. So when they are practicing that, they should give up and they should decrease eating. They should give up sleeping. They have to undergo very hard rituals of meditation, maybe practices. So when he was doing it, there were 5 ascetics around him who was helping him. And finally, after 6 years of hard trying and self-mortification, our Bodhisattva decided that no one can find the ultimate liberation through this method, through self-mortification. So he decided to take some food to maintain his physical energy. So in that moment, those 5 monks around him saw this, that he is taking foods, and they thought that he has given up the way. Now he is not going to be enlightened. So at that time, those 5 monks did not believe on our Bodhisattva. So what they did was, they rejected him. They left him in the jungle and they went off. Our Bodhisattva was alone. But did he give up? No. So it was a blessing to his life. He could practice his meditations alone. So he gathered up some energy to his body by having some food, and he started meditating. He started developing himself. He did not care about the rejections. He did not care about the people who left him. And on a beautiful Vesak Poya day, he became the Buddha. He was enlightened. Do you know what he did after being enlightened? He went to see those 5 monks, and he was so grateful for those 5 monks, and he preached Dhamma to them. The Dhamma that was realized by the Buddha. And he became so grateful, and he showed his gratitude to them. So, it doesn't matter that people rejected you. What you have to do is, you have to constantly develop yourself, focus on yourself, right? Do the best thing that today you can do. And also, in the same time, you have to be kind to them. Because the reason that they rejected you is they did not know your full story. They did not understand your strengths. So you don't want to be unkind to them. Still you can be kind to them. Right? That is how you should be a good human. Right? So use the rejection as a motivation to build up yourself. Don't be sad. Remember, life is like an ocean. When the voyagers are going on the ocean, the sailors face so many storms and turbulence and tornadoes. When the sea journey is getting more hard and tough, the voyage becomes more interesting and beautiful, right? People talk about more tough and rough sea journeys, but they don't talk about peaceful and calm sea journeys, right? So remember, your life becomes more interesting and more beautiful when you face the difficult situations, tough times, criticisms, bullies, and rejections in your life. So when you use those bitter experiences as a motivation to your life, you will be a successful person in the world. So use the rejection as the motivation. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to another video. From today's video, we're going to be discussing about how can we use our speech, our words in a wiser way, right? Now, to do that, in Buddhism, we learn 5 things, 5 rules to follow and ask from ourselves 5 questions before we speak, right? Now, this is taught in regarding to reproving to someone, like showing a mistake to someone. But these 5 rules can be added to our normal day-to-day speech as well. And it will make a greater change and it will make a greater impact on ourselves as well as others. So that is why it is important to understand the words that we speak has got power. There's a beautiful saying that says, words can make people and words can break people. So that understand the words that we speak has got power and it matters. So how can we speak in a wiser way, right? How can we use our words in a wiser way? Now, in Buddhism, we learn 5 rules to follow this, right? 5 questions to ask from ourselves before we speak. Now, the first question that we need to ask from ourselves before we speak something is that, am I speaking in the proper time? Right? Sometimes, even though it is true, even though it is truthful what we speak, maybe not the proper time to speak. Now, what is the proper time to speak? Now, the whole idea, the whole point of speaking is to get the message across to the other person in the correct way. But sometimes, even though we are saying the truth, even though we are saying the right thing, that person who is receiving the message may not be in a condition to get the message, right? He or she may be not in a mindset to receive the message. So that if we convey the message, they may not get the same idea that we are having. Now, the whole point of communication is to get the idea, to plant the same idea on the other person, right? But if we did not do in the proper time, it won't work. And that is why in Buddhism we learn, wait until the proper time. Ask from yourself, am I speaking in the proper time, right? Now, for an example, if you need to show a mistake in someone, if you need to correct a mistake in someone, now you need to communicate. That is where you need the communication in, like, it is very important at that time, right? The right communication. But if you say that mistake, if you show that mistake when that person is angry, right? When that person's mind is filled with anger, what happens? They may not get the idea. They may not see the mistake that we are showing. Okay? So what we do? We wait until the anger cools down and open his ears and mind. Now, when our mind is in anger, we are not ready to listen to anyone, right? We are not ready to think about what is wrong or what is right. That is why the Buddha says, "Khuddho attang na jananti." When your mind is in anger, you don't know what is good and bad, right? So that we need to understand. If we need to get a message across to that person, we need to wait for the proper time. Until their mind is open, until their ears are open, until they are ready to listen and understand that message. So that waiting until the proper time is very important when we communicate. That is the first question that we need to ask from ourselves. Am I speaking in the right time? The second thing that we need to follow is, we need to ask from ourselves, am I speaking truthfully? Right? The Buddha says, you need to follow the truthful speech. You need to say the truth. But even though the truth, you need to put it in the right time, in the right place, right? The Buddha says, even I, right? Even the Buddha, even though it is the truth, he waits until the right time to say it. Sometimes it is not the correct time to say the truth, so that we need to wait until that. Now, this doesn't say that we need to tell lies to cover up that, right? This says that you need to be patient and not panicked until you need to use the proper word. So the Buddha says that speaking truthfully is very important. Why? Because when you speak the truth, sometimes you may lose certain things, but when you speak the truth, you gain one very important thing, and that is the truth. That is the trust. Trust is very important in any kind of relationship. And that is why you need to be truthful, but also you need to wait until the proper time. Okay? So that is the second thing that you need to ask. Am I speaking truthfully? And also we learn in Buddhism that speak gently, not harshly. So that you need to ask from yourself, am I speaking harshly? Am I speaking gently? Sometimes what you say is true, right? When you say is the correct time, right? You say it in the correct time, what you say is the truth, but the tone matters, right? The words that we use to convey the message matters. I have seen a lot of people showing others' mistakes with rude and harsh words, sometimes putting them down, like putting their mentality down and hurting their mentality and showing the truth, they're showing a mistake, but they don't get that message. Why? Because they have hurt their mentality. Sometimes when you use such kind of words, their emotions get hurt, so that they're not ready to listen to it. Now, why we convey the message, why we communicate, is we understand that this is the right thing, this is the correct thing, but I need to make him right. I need to make him correct. I don't need to see that mistake again in his life. I need the good of that person. Now, if you truly love that person, you have to use your words in a proper way so that he or she get the fullest message that you are conveying. And that is why we learn in Buddhism that gentle words can change people's mindsets. But rude and harsh words make nothing but people more stubborn in their own ideas. So that understand, gentle words are the best way to change other people's mindsets. There are a lot of examples even in Buddhism that we learn that the Buddha, how Bodhisattva used the gentle words to change people, right? So that understand, speaking gently is very important. Now, what makes a gentle man and a gentle woman is not how you wear, right? It's the words that you speak. It's the way that you behave. It's how gentle you treat other people. That is what makes you a gentleman and a gentlewoman. So understand that speaking gently is really, really important. So ask from yourself, am I speaking gently? And also we learn in Buddhism that your speech must be beneficial for the other person, not harmful. Now to do that, you need to have an intention that you truly love that person, right? You truly love your idea to see that in that person's mind and making their life much better, right? See the good on them. Now to do that, you need to speak in a beneficial way so that that person corrects their mistakes, right? That person's life becomes better by listening to your words. So that the Buddha says that always speak beneficial words, not the words that harm other people's life. So then you need to ask from yourself that, am I speaking beneficially but not harmfully? So that understand, you need to speak to the people to see the good on them. And the final question that we need to ask from ourselves is that, am I speaking lovingly, out of love and compassion, not with inner hate? Sometimes we use our words, even though the good words, good things, but we have the inner hate, right? When we have the inner hate, that is the intention behind our words. And that intention can create negative situations in our life and also the other people's lives. And that is why in Buddhist way of right speech, we refrain from all the negative speeches like rude words, harsh words, right? Or some mean words. that has the negative intentions behind, right? So the intention behind your speech is really, really important. So that understand, ask from yourself that, am I speaking to this person out of love and compassion, not with inner hate, right? So the Buddha says that speak with love and compassion. Okay. Sometimes some people complain, okay, if we speak with love and compassion, they are not ready to understand it. And we believe that speaking with like kind words and compassionate and gentle words will make other people not to understand what we say. Sometimes they say, okay, to make someone understand, we need to use rude and harsh words. But that is not always correct, right? The reason why we believe that using those rude and harsh words is the only way to get the message to that person is because when we were children, we were treated with rude and harsh words, right? We were disciplined in the rude and hard ways, so that we believe that this is the only way to do that, but it is not, right? If we start to use in the correct way your speech, it is pretty sure that you get the message correctly to that person, and also they understand it and they make their mistakes correct. So that understand, these are the 5 things that we need to follow. These are the five questions that we need to ask from ourselves to get the message correctly, to communicate in a correct way, and also to make our speech wiser. So follow these 5 things in your speech and make your life even more better. Namo Buddhaya. Still, I can remember this incident. When I was little, when I was at school, one of my teachers came to our noisy classroom and she asked from us, do you know why you have given 2 ears and 1 mouth? Then she said, the reason why we have given 2 ears and 1 mouth is to talk less and to listen more. Ladies and gentlemen, when we deal with people in our relationship life, in your family life, in your workspace, if you have this quality of active listening, that can help you in many ways. This quality can help you in many ways. Okay? Now, so many people come to our temple and they talk with the monks with their problems and about their family problems, the problems in the workspace. And there's one thing that they all say, and that is, they say, they are not listening to me. They are not willing to pay attention to me. They cannot understand me. That is one thing that they say. So, if you have the art of active listening, if you practice the art of active listening, you will be liked by many people, right? People always like to talk with someone who is paying more attention to them, right? If you consider about the Buddha was a great listener. At one time, one man comes up to the Buddha and he starts insulting him, right? He starts blaming him. All through that incident, the only thing that Buddha did was he listened to that person, right? He paid a good attention to that person. And in another time, one lady comes with her son died on her hand, and she was wailing and she was lamenting in front of the Buddha. And the only thing that the Buddha did was, he paid attention to that lady's suffering, right? He listened to that lady's suffering. So, if you can practice this art of active listening, if you can listen more and talk less, people will start to like you. Remember that. For an example, if you come up to me, right? If you wanted to talk about a problem that you are having in your life, and from the beginning of the conversation, if I started to give you instructions and give you the advice and my opinions about that problem, what would you feel? You will start to think like, this monk cannot understand me. He's not willing to pay attention to me. He's not willing to listen to me. So practice this art of active listening. So how can we practice the listening. Well, the Buddha said that all the words that we speak from our mouth is pre-processed in our mind. That means we think first all these words and then we put it into our mouth and we speak. So if we can be mindful about what we think, what is going on in our mind, then it is very easy to control what you speak. And then it is very easy to know when to speak and when not to speak. So this practice is called, being mindful about the thoughts is called Chittanupassana in Buddhism, right? For that, the only thing that we have to do is like just sit in a quiet place and just watch our thoughts, what comes to our mind. We don't want to react with that thought. We don't want to chase behind that thought. Just identify the thought as just a thought. That is one practice that you can practice to be a good listener. And also, there's another way to practice this listening ability is to engage in conversations and try to listen more to that person. So, in the next conversation that you're having, try this out. Go to someone and if they wanted to talk with you, just from the beginning of the conversation, tell it to yourself that I'm going to listen to this person more. I'm going to pay attention to this person more. That is one way of paying and showing your love and affection to the person that is in front of you, right? That is why lending a good ear and listening to someone and sharing their suffering or problems with them is one way of showing your compassion and love towards them. Okay? So in the next conversation, when you go through that, just listen more to them. Let them put out what is in their mind. And when they go silent, and then you have to ask some more questions. Tell me, how did you do that? Right? How it happened? Right? Tell me more about the details that happened. Then they will be more interested in talking with you and they will start to like you and love you. When you practice this, then you will get used to this active listening. Okay? And also remember, do not listen to someone just to reply to them or just to give your opinion to them. Always listen to people to understand about their situation, to understand who the person behind these words, and to understand the intention behind these words. When you do that, then you will become an active and a good listener, and then you will be liked by many people. So that is all about the active listening. Be mindful about your thoughts and listen more than you talk. Keep that in your mind. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome everyone to another video. So today, let's talk about loneliness and how we can face this situation. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about two things. And the first one is the loneliness, and the second one is the solitude, which is more reframed version of being alone. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about loneliness. When we are around people, when we are living with people, and when we are in relationships with people, normally we feel happy. We feel that we are content, right? And we feel this joyfulness within ourselves. But when they are not around us, or when they leave us, sometimes when we have to depart from them, normally we feel depressed, sad, or lonely, or we feel like no one cares about us. So this is the feeling of loneliness. If we analyze this emotion of loneliness, we can find that we have become happy because of the people around us, because of their reaction, because of their way of behavior. That was the reason that we became happy. Simply it means that we have given the key of our own happiness to other people. So when they leave our life, sometimes when they depart from ourselves, Sometimes when they fade away from our life, what happens to us is we become unhappy, we become sad, we become depressed, and we feel like no one is caring for us. There is no one to help for me. That is what we are thinking. So how we can deal with this? Well, that is where we come to the topic of solitude. Supreme Buddha advised us, Supreme Buddha advised the monks to practice this practice of being solitude. So what do you mean by solitude? So first of all, let's compare the loneliness to the solitude. Then you can take some idea about that. In loneliness, when you're lonely, you're thinking for someone to come to your life and make you happy. That means you're depending on others. Your happiness depends on others. But in solitude, you try to find the happiness within yourself. When you find the happiness inside yourself, you don't want to depend on another person. You don't want to depend on second person. You can find your happiness within yourself. And that is what the practice of solitude gives us. So when you're being solitude, or simply when you're being alone, now there are the people talk about this like the loneliness and being alone is two different things, right? So when you're being alone or when you're being in solitude, you're happy. You're not finding the happiness from these outer sources. You find the happiness within yourself. So Buddha teaches us to look at this loneliness not as something to be sad, not as something negative. Buddha teaches us to look at this loneliness something that is beneficial for you, something that is positive. So how we can use this loneliness, or how we can reframe this loneliness to be positive? Well, if you think about whenever you are being alone, you have more time for yourself, right? You have a bigger freedom for yourself. You can think about yourself. You can reflect more about yourself, and you can practice meditations, or you can think about your health and do some practices about that. You can do some self-development techniques, so you can improve yourself. So when you use that time, when you use that loneliness for good things, then you become more positive about that. Then you will never feel these sad or depressing states. So let me tell you a little story how Buddha felt lonely at one time. Actually, this incident happened to the Buddha before he became enlightened. We call him the Bodhisattva. When he was Bodhisattva, he was practicing this self-mortification for 6 years. He gave lots of hardships to this body. He did some extreme meditations in the jungle. So there were 5 monks who were helping the Bodhisattva. So he practiced this self-mortification meditations for 6 years, and he mastered that. Finally, he came to the conclusion of that I cannot achieve this enlightenment by self-mortificating or by giving this extreme hardship to this body. So he decided to find this middle way. So what he did was, first of all, he took his bowl and he went to the village and he got some foods to eat. Because he thought that to do the meditations, I need to have this physical energy. But those 5 monks who were helping to Bodhisattva, who were expecting the enlightenment from the Bodhisattva through this self-mortification, was so confused because they saw that the Bodhisattva is having these foods. Then those 5 monks thought, like, now he's not going to achieve this enlightenment. The enlightenment can only be achieved by this self-mortification. So they never believed on the Bodhisattva. So what they did was, they left the Bodhisattva. Now our Mahabodhisattva was all alone in the middle of the jungle. There was no one to help him. There was no one to care about him. No one knew about him. He was all alone. But he didn't think about that loneliness as something depressed or something negative. So he thought, now I have more time for myself. I can do my meditations freely. There was no one to think about me. So I must use this time for my self-development. That is what Mahabodhisattva thought. So that is the way that we also should think about this loneliness. If you are feeling lonely, if you are having some kind of a loneliness situations in your life, use that time, use that valuable time to create a better life for yourself, because you have more time. You can do meditations. You can stick into a daily routine of the self-development. You can do meditations, you can do workouts, you can walk for some time, and you can be with this nature, read a book, or learn something new, practice meditations, do exercises. These things can be done when you are all alone. So, rather than feeling depressed about the situations that you are in, why can't we become more happy about the time that we are spending alone, right? So practice this, okay? So if people comes to your life, let them come. If people walks away from your life, let them walk away. But you have to be by yourself. You have to think about yourself. That is what you have to think, and that is what you have to do in this valuable time. So I think you got some idea about the loneliness and being in the solitude. So practice the solitude and make your life more better. Namo Buddhaya.